30 bikers arrived after an old lady was slapped, and what they did next will restore your faith in justice. Margaret Chen was 78 years old when she made the terrible mistake of asking for help at the wrong gas station. She'd been driving to visit her grandson's grave at the military cemetery, same trip she made every Thursday for 3 years. Her car started making a horrible noise near exit 47. She barely made it to the gas station before the engine died completely. Margaret walked inside and politely asked the young clerk if he could call a tow truck. The clerk, a kid named Brandon with face tattoos and an attitude, looked up from his phone. "We don't do that here, Grandma," he sneered. "This ain't a charity." Margaret's hands shook as she explained her situation. "Please, I just need to use your phone." "Mine is dead and I don't know what to do." Brandon laughed and went back to scrolling. "Not my problem, old lady. Buy something or get out." That's when his manager walked in from the back. Derek was a bald man in his 30s with arms covered in amateur prison tattoos. He took one look at Margaret and his face twisted with disgust. "I told you yesterday, no loitering," Derek shouted. "We don't want homeless people in here." Margaret's voice trembled. "Sir, I'm not homeless. My car broke down and I just need help." Derek grabbed her purse off the counter. "What's this? You trying to steal?" "That's mine," Margaret protested, reaching for it. Derek slapped her hand away so hard that Margaret stumbled backward. She caught herself on a display rack, knocking over bags of chips. The old woman's glasses flew off and shattered on the floor. "Now you're destroying property," Derek screamed. "I'm calling the cops on you." Margaret was crying now, blood running from where her hand hit the metal rack. "Please, I didn't do anything wrong." That's when Brandon pulled out his phone and started recording. "This is going to be epic content," he laughed. "Crazy old lady freaking out at gas station." Derek shoved Margaret toward the door. "Get out before I really make you regret this." The push sent Margaret sprawling onto the concrete outside. Her knee cracked against the pavement and she screamed in pain. She couldn't get up. Her knee was bleeding badly and her wrist was bent at an odd angle. "Help me," Margaret sobbed. "Someone please help me." Cars drove past. People walked by. Nobody stopped. Margaret lay there on the hot concrete, bleeding and alone, wondering if this was how she would die. Then she heard it, the rumble of motorcycles in the distance, getting louder. Jake Ironside Morrison was leading his crew back from a veteran's funeral when he spotted the elderly woman on the ground. He raised his fist and every bike behind him slowed immediately. 30 bikers pulled into that gas station like thunder rolling in. Jake knelt beside Margaret.
"Ma'am, are you okay?"
"Ma'am, I'm Jake.
We'll get
Can you
some
tell me
help."
what happened?" Through her tears and pain, Margaret explained everything. Jake's jaw clenched tighter with every word. He looked up at his brothers, and they all saw the same rage in each other's eyes. "Tiny," Jake called out. A massive biker with a gray beard approached. "Call for an ambulance and stay with her. Make sure she's comfortable." Tiny gently helped Margaret sit up against his bike, giving her his jacket as a cushion. "You're safe now, ma'am, I promise." Jake and the rest walked into that gas station. Derek was behind the counter, still smirking until he saw 30 leather-clad bikers filling his store. "We're closed," Derek announced nervously. "Funny," Jake said calmly. "Sign says you're open until midnight." Brandon held up his phone, still
"Y'all better
recording.
leave before I call
"Y'all
the
better
cops."
leave before I call the cops." "Please do," said a woman's voice. Everyone turned to see Officer Patricia Santos walking in, her hand resting on her duty belt. "I was next door getting coffee when I saw the whole thing on your security cameras." Derek's face went white. He'd forgotten about the exterior cameras.
If you believe bikers are good people, subscribe to this channel.
"That woman attacked me," Derek lied desperately. "She was crazy and violent." Officer Santos shook her head. "I watched you push an elderly woman onto concrete. I watched you slap her hand, and I watched both of you laugh while she bled outside. It was just a misunderstanding,"
It was just a
Brandon
misunderstanding.
stammered. Jake spoke up.
A misunderstanding is when you give someone wrong directions.
"What you did was assault an elderly woman and film it for entertainment. Who is she anyway?" Derek spat. "Probably just some crazy homeless person." "Her name is Margaret Chen," said another voice. A man in marine dress blues walked in. "And she's my grandmother." Captain David Chen looked at Derek with pure fury. "My brother, her grandson, died in Iraq. She was driving to his grave when her car broke down. She asked you for help and you assaulted her. The gas station went dead silent except for the hum of the refrigerators. I didn't know, Derek whispered. Would it have mattered? Captain Chen asked coldly. Does someone need to be related to a fallen Marine before you treat them with basic human decency? Officer Santos pulled out her handcuffs.
Derek Wilson
and Brandon Hayes.
You're under arrest.
You're under arrest for assault and battery of an elderly person. Derek lunged for the back door. He made it exactly 3 steps before 2 bikers blocked his path. These men didn't touch him, just stood there like leather-clad walls. I'd stay put if I were you, Jake suggested. The ambulance arrived and paramedics treated Margaret's injuries. Fractured wrist, deep laceration on her knee, severe bruising. They wanted to take her to the hospital immediately. Margaret grabbed Jake's hand. Thank you. I thought nobody cared. We care, ma'am, Jake said gently. And we're not going anywhere until this is made right. At the hospital, Margaret learned her injuries would take months to heal. Her wrist needed surgery and physical therapy. The doctor explained she might never regain full mobility in that hand. Captain Chen sat with his grandmother, holding her good hand. I'm so sorry, Grandma. I should have driven you myself. You're a Marine captain, Margaret smiled weakly. You have responsibilities. Nothing more important than family, he said firmly. Outside in the waiting room, 30 bikers had taken over the entire space. Nurses brought them coffee. Other patients asked for pictures. These dangerous-looking men were signing autographs and being incredibly polite to everyone. Jake got a phone call and stepped outside. When he came back, he was smiling. 2 days later, something incredible happened. The Iron Brotherhood Motorcycle Club held a press conference outside that gas station. Media from 3 states showed up. Jake stood at a microphone with Margaret in a wheelchair beside him, her grandson behind her in his Marine uniform. This gas station refused to help a 78-year-old woman whose car broke down. They assaulted her, mocked her, and left her bleeding on concrete while they filmed it for social media. The crowd murmured angrily. But this story isn't about them, Jake continued. It's about what happens when good people decide enough is enough. He gestured behind him. 30 motorcycles were lined up, each one carrying supplies. We've collected donations for the local senior center. We've organized a volunteer driving service for elderly veterans who need rides. And we're starting a fund to help seniors in emergency situations. Margaret wiped tears from her eyes. I thought I was alone. I thought nobody cared about an old woman. Captain Chen leaned down to his grandmother. You're a Gold Star mother and grandmother. You'll never be alone again. The gas station owner, a man named Robert who'd been out of town during the incident, was mortified when he learned what happened. He fired Derek and Brandon immediately. He also donated $10,000 to Margaret's medical bills and the senior support fund.
Subscribe to this channel if you believe bikers make the world better.
Derek and Brandon both faced charges. The video Brandon recorded became evidence against them. The prosecution also discovered Derek had 3 previous complaints for mistreating elderly customers that were never properly investigated. Derek got 18 months in county jail and 5 years probation. Brandon got community service and mandatory anger management. Both were ordered to pay restitution to Margaret. But the real story happened 6 months later at the military cemetery. Margaret made her weekly visit to her grandson's grave, like she'd done for 3 years. But this time, she didn't drive alone. 30 motorcycles escorted her every single week. They'd made it a tradition, a way to honor both Margaret and her fallen grandson. Sometimes Captain Chen could join them, sometimes he was deployed, but the bikers never missed a Thursday. Margaret would sit by the grave for an hour, talking to her grandson about her week, about the bikers who protected her, about the good still left in the world. One Thursday, a young mother approached the group nervously. She was maybe 30 years old with a small daughter holding her hand. Excuse me, the woman said quietly. Are you the bikers who helped that lady at the gas station? Jake nodded. Yes, ma'am. Can we help you? The woman's eyes filled with tears. My car broke down on the highway last week. I was so scared to ask anyone for help after what I saw happen to that other lady. But a trucker stopped and he mentioned you all, said there were still good people in the world. She wiped her eyes. I just wanted to say thank you. You didn't help me directly, but you gave me hope that people still care. Margaret reached out and squeezed the young mother's hand. Sweetheart, what happened to me was terrible. But what came after was beautiful. These men reminded me that for every cruel person in this world, there are dozens of good ones. The little girl looked up at Jake with wide eyes. Are you a good guy? Jake knelt down to her level. I try to be, kiddo, every single day. You look scary, the little girl said honestly. I know, Jake smiled. But scary-looking people can have the biggest hearts. Margaret visits her grandson's grave every Thursday. 30 bikers still escort her, rain or shine. They've expanded their mission. The gas station has new management now. They offer free phone calls for anyone having car trouble. They keep bottles of water outside for people waiting for help. And they have a photo on the wall showing 30 bikers surrounding an elderly woman with a caption reading, "This is what community looks like." Derek got out of jail after 12 months. Last anyone heard, he was working at a warehouse and taking classes to become a better person. He sent Margaret a letter apologizing, not because his lawyer told him to, but because he finally understood the weight of what he'd done. Brandon deleted all his social media accounts. He volunteers at a senior center now as part of his community service. But he kept going even after his hours were complete. Turns out, helping people feels better than mocking them. Margaret is 79 now. Her wrist healed, but she can't grip things like she used to. She doesn't drive anymore, but she doesn't need to. 30 bikers make sure she gets everywhere she needs to go. Captain Chen was promoted to major. He credits the bikers with saving his grandmother's life and restoring his faith that civilians still care about military families. The Iron Brotherhood Senior Support Program now operates in 15 states. They've helped over 500 elderly veterans and their families. They call it Margaret's Mission. Every Memorial Day, Margaret rides in a special sidecar at the front of the Veterans Parade. She wears a leather vest with patches honoring her son and grandson. She waves to crowds who cheer for the tough bikers protecting the tiny elderly woman. People ask Jake why his club does this. Why spend every Thursday escorting one old lady to a cemetery? Why organize all these programs for seniors? His answer is always the same. Because Margaret represents everyone's mother, grandmother, and the mother of a fallen hero. When she asked for help and the world turned its back, we decided to be the world she deserved. That's what brotherhood really means. That's what happens when dangerous-looking men decide to use their power for good instead of intimidation. Margaret Chen was slapped, pushed, and left bleeding on concrete while the world walked past. But 30 bikers decided that wasn't acceptable. They didn't just help her that day. They changed their entire community's attitude toward the elderly and vulnerable. Sometimes the scariest-looking people are the ones who will save you. Sometimes justice wears leather and rides a Harley. And sometimes all it takes is 30 good people to make everything right.
If you believe bikers are good people, subscribe to this channel and show us your support.